This is your facilitator, Kumar for this course, Decorators in Python. Earlier we discussed definition of decorators, its syntax, and how simple decorators could be created and how it works. In this video, we'll be discussing a bit more complex example of decorator. Besides, we'll be discussing how decorators work with parameters. We also discussed that in the third video, but we're going to discuss this with more details and focus. And in the upcoming video, we'll be discussing more on chaining decorators in Python in detail and with focus. So let's begin. Here I've imported the library time. It helps in calculating our time, and even if you want to record the time, we can do this with the help of this library. We can also make the function sleep with the help of the functions available in this library. What we are going to do here, our focus is on parameters within decorator functions. Here you can see that I have passed arguments and key value arguments as parameters within the timed function. So it means that there could be variable number of arguments here and variable number of key value arguments here that could be passed within the timed function. Now the core and the most important thing is, when we are creating a decorator function with parameters, we have to make sure that the arguments that are being passed within the internal function of the decorator has to match with the decorator function, with the function to be decorated. It has to be same. Let's discuss this. Here we are using the input function here, and within that input function again we have the same parameters, that is variable number of arguments and variable number of key value arguments. And this is the most important thing when we are working with parameters within the decorator functions. Let's discuss the functionality of this function. This is the time test function. We have created another internal time function, and we are passing arguments and key value argument within the timed function. We just note the start time, that is time.time. This is the function within the time library, and then we are passing on the function to be decorated, that is input underscore func, and that also has the same arguments. Now then after that passing, we are recording the end time, that is time.time, and then we are printing method name, argument 1, key value argument 2, and the execution time. And how do we want this to be formatted? Here within the format function, we identify that input func, whatever function that we have decorated, dot construct the name of that function, the arguments on the first place, the arguments or key value arguments on the second place, and the end time minus start time, that is how much time it took to execute the function. We have already recorded the start time at the start of this internal function within the decorator function, and end time after that function decorated function has been passed. And then what we are doing, we are returning the result, that is the internal function, the function that we decorated, and we are going to terminate the program, terminate the function, this result function. Then we are going to terminate the function, and then we are going to move forward towards the time function and returning the time function. Now let's create the function to be decorated. This is the function we defined. It also has the key variable number of arguments and key value arguments. What we are doing, we are making this function to sleep for 0.6 seconds. It could be like any number, but why we are doing this? So that there's a difference between, or there is a clear difference between the start time of the function and end time of the function, so that we can know that how long that actually it took to execute that function. Then we are printing inside function and printing the arguments in key value arguments within that function. So just before moving forward, let's execute this. Okay, this is executed. Now next, again I'm going to execute this. Now this is also executed. Now I'm testing this function. In the arguments, variable number of arguments, I've passed a list that has hello and world, and in the key value arguments I passed two key value pairs, that is start and end. Okay, so when I execute this function, it prints inside func that we just asked it to print, and then the key arguments in key value arguments, so it printed that. Now I decorated this function with the time test function that we initially created, and now let's see how it works. So I just printed that. Now this function has been decorated with time test function. When I executed this function with these parameters, it just printed inside func, that was this, and then it printed the arguments, and then it printed the actual method name, that is the func, the arguments. Hello world key value arguments are start 2 and 5, and the execution time of 0.6. So it actually took the 0.6 was the sleep time, and actually the whole running of this function took 0.00011 seconds. Now let's go back to the actual decorator function. The function was calculating the start time, end time, after this decorated function is being done or executed, and then it's printing all these things like the method name, the argument one, the arguments, the key value arguments, and the execution time, and then returning this result, then returning the function. And there you can see method name, arguments, key value arguments, and execution time. Another example, here we are using a smart divide function, and what it does, it just divides. Not only just divides, it actually tests if the division is possible or not. For example, if the parameter passed is 0 instead of any positive integer, the division cannot take place because 0 gives an error. So first of all, we are printing a and b and its value, and then we are checking if b is equals to 0, then the condition becomes true and it prints whoops cannot divide, and then return, or actually terminates the function, and at the end it just returns the inner function. So this is always going to take place, so you already know about it. Let's execute this. Okay, now using the smart divide with the divide function, we're decorating this, and then let's try this. Now I'm dividing 3 by 0, and let's check out if it works or not. Yes, I'm going to divide 3 and 0. Oops, cannot divide. And if I divide it by 2, I'm going to divide 3 and 2, and it results in 1.5. So as a keen observer, you must have noticed that the parameters of the nested function inside the decorator is same as the parameters of function it decorates. So the inner function that is within the decorator function has the same parameter as the function to be decorated, and this is the same thing that we earlier discussed, that the signature of inner function in the decorator must match the function to decorate. The signature of inner function in the decorator must match the function to decorate. I hope now you have a better understanding of parameters and how to use parameters in decorator functions, and you'd be able to use that also. May you have any queries, feel free to contact, and in the upcoming video we'll be discussing chaining decorators. Thank you. And don't forget to, if you're looking to get connected, you can connect me by subscribing, or by subscribing to my channel, YouTube channel, by on Twitter, and also on Udemy by getting the course. You can also message me if you're looking for 100% sponsorship of the course. Thank you.